Half an hour walk up the road.
Some boys are in a world. You boys have woke up the devil.
The story begins in 1878 in the Montana Territory, where Colton's name was no longer heard even though he was once the deadliest hitman who ever lived. However, thanks to the influence of his wife Ruth, Colton left his dark past behind and now chooses to live a quiet life, managing a farm, running a small shop, and devoting himself entirely to his family. And most importantly, he is responsible for the safety of his daughter, Brooke, who is now just 12 years old. One day, Colton took his daughter to school, and from their conversation, it was clear that his daughter had the same cold personality as her father. However, when they arrived at school, the teacher was sick, so school was canceled. Brooks ended up being taken along to look after the grocery store that sold daily necessities.
Morning, Mr. Jeffers.
Morning, Mr. Briggs.
Meanwhile at home, Ruth, who was still busy with her laundry, was startled by the arrival of a group of men led by James, a man on horseback named Boots, a large man named Mike, and another man who was still on his way named Eustace. At first, they only came to ask for directions to the nearest town, but soon Ruth became anxious because the men began to intimidate her.
Half an hour walk up the road.
Realizing she was in danger, Ruth decided to escape into the warehouse. James, who saw the name Colton on the saddle in the barn, realized that this woman was Colton's wife, and upon hearing the name Colton, his friends were suddenly terrified. Ruth, who was helpless, warned them that they had awakened a sleeping demon and was certain that Colton would kill them all. But James did not seem afraid at all.
You boys are in a world. You boys have woke up the devil.
Meanwhile at the store, Colton and Brooke finally finished their business and returned home. But upon arriving there, they were confused because their house was visited by several sheriffs. One of the sheriffs, who was a marshal, approached them and finally realized with fear that the house belonged to Colton, the former best cold-blooded shooter. After that, with a heavy heart, the sheriff informed them that Colton's wife had died. When Colton buried Ruth, Frank was surprised that Brooke didn't seem sad at all. Frank then told Brooke that before he got married, Colton was a cruel murderer who was feared by everyone. And now he was amazed that Colton had repented, started a family, and begun a new life by opening a grocery store.
Are you a good man?
Well, that's because he's a good man now.
After that, Frank explained that Ruth had been killed by a gang, but he did not reveal the name of the gang. Colton clearly intended to take revenge, but Frank prevented him because he promised to arrest them together with the sheriffs. In the warehouse, Colton was clearly saddened by the tragic loss of his beloved wife, and shortly thereafter he found a threatening message. As expected, Colton intended to seek revenge, and this time he invited his daughter to join him. But before that, they burned down the house and warehouse so that all the bad memories could be forgotten.
This is Mama's horse.
Yeah, they killed mine.
That morning, Brooke was very happy because they had finally decided to take revenge, but she was also sad because she had to erase all her memories of that house. Soon after, Colton decided to take a break because he was tired, especially since James's gang had surely fled far away. Meanwhile, in another place, Frank and the sheriffs were also chasing James, but suddenly they were attacked. Frank tries his best to fight back as his friends slowly begin to fall. Luckily, James and his henchmen also panic and decide to retreat.
I can't believe it.
Then James gets angry because Boots should have shot Frank first before running away, while Justice and Mike say they are more worried about Colton, who is definitely targeting them right now. After resting for quite a while, Colton told Brooke to get up immediately because he heard gunfire, and they quickly left again. Shortly thereafter, they saw someone approaching, and Colton planned to take that person's horse, while Brooke was told to block him by crying. Unfortunately, Brooke was not good enough at acting like she was crying, and even though she cried reluctantly, the plan was ultimately successful.
They expect you to laugh at their jokes and sigh at their babies and cry.
Wham, wham, my baby, my baby.
Okay, little girl.
Wham, my baby.
Then Frank and several sheriffs who survived the shootout with James finally met Colton, and Colton decided to help the wounded sheriffs. When given medical treatment, Frank said he hoped Colton would not return to his old self. But with deep hatred, Colton said he would find the perpetrator and kill anyone who stood in his way, including the sheriffs. Thinking that Colton was going to kill his friends, Frank told him that the gang Colton was looking for was led by a man named James, and currently he was with 3 of his men who were planning to go to Santa Rosa, a city on the Mexican border. And after getting this information, Colton took some weapons and went to borrow Frank's horse.
You hear me? God damn you!
Elsewhere, James's gang arrived at their hideout, and there was a lot of money stored there, which was Mexican currency. They were disappointed because it wasn't dollars, but James promised them they would be rich if they went to Mexico. And James already had this plan because he knew Colton was definitely after them. Not long after they arrived in the city of Santa Rosa, Mexico, and would spend the night there, and James also told Eustace to go to the city gate just in case Colton suddenly came.
Well, I'll take first watch.
That night, Colton and Brooke also rested, and here Colton confirmed Frank's statement about himself as a former debt collector and a ruthless killer. Since childhood, Colton had lived a hard life to the point of never crying or laughing, but since marrying Ruth, he has become a better person. This trait was clearly passed down to Brooke, who also did not cry, even though her mother died in front of her, and she is now determined to kill James with her own hands.
James McAllister.
You will. Let the barrel drift right above your target.
The next morning, Colton taught Brooke how to shoot with a shotgun, but because the settings were terrible and it was too heavy, Brooke asked for a pistol and ended up hitting a hat. In the town of Eustace, who had woken up from his sleep, protested to James because no one was replacing him to guard the gate while Mike and Boots were fast asleep in the hotel. Since complaining clearly didn't solve the problem, James told them to get ready because Colton would definitely come after them. Meanwhile, Colton and Brooke finally arrived at the outskirts of Santa Rosa and realized that James's gang was waiting for them. He told Brooke to go in and gather information. Following her father's instructions, Brooke went alone to the city and entered a store to ask about James's gang. Unfortunately, when she left the store, James and his henchmen intercepted her because they knew from her saddle that she was Colton's daughter. Then Brooke was immediately taken hostage, and James ordered the others to patrol because Colton would surely come to rescue her.
Boss is expecting Briggs anytime.
Makes sense.
You do yourself and all of us a favor.
While the two were talking, it was revealed that James was Jimmy, the son of a thief who had been shot dead by Colton in the past. For 20 years, he had been planning all of this to avenge his father's death, and now he was determined to kill Colton. Meanwhile, a worried Colton began to move, but Mike, who was on guard, saw him coming into town. Somehow, Mike was easily defeated, and afterwards there was a shootout between Boots and Colton, which ended with Boots having to search for Colton, who was hiding.
He went down that alley, behind these buildings.
James, who heard the gunfire, took Brooke as bait and eventually discovered that Colton was hiding in a store. Seeing that Brooke was being held hostage, he finally came out and had no choice but to surrender in this situation. James then tried to remind Colton that 20 years ago, Colton had killed his father, and now he would seek revenge.
Hear the noises my daddy made as he died. She never would tell me her name, but
Brooke, I love you.
A gunfight ensued, but unfortunately, Colton was shot in the chest. Meanwhile, James was overjoyed that his revenge had been fulfilled, but suddenly, in the end, Colton had to die, leaving his daughter behind, and Brooke was finally able to cry. Shortly after Frank and the sheriffs arrived, and because of the chaos, Frank initially planned to dispose of Colton's body because he had acted like a criminal. However, because this act was based on love, Frank decided to help bury him properly. He then advised Brooke that she could continue her life by running the grocery store, and with the money found in James's bag, Brooke must now continue her life on her own, carrying on her father's business. And the film ends.